Everyone, welcome to this episode of Ecoffee with Experts. I'm your host, Matt Fraser. And on today's show, I have a very special guest with me, Chris Williams. Chris is the founder of Aginto, a digital marketing agency dedicated to helping service-based businesses to achieve growth and success, headquartered in Sarasota, Florida. He is an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and volunteer who preaches that hard work solves almost every struggle in life. Throughout his journey, he has learned that it can be easy to stumble and hard to get up, but it's worth it. Because of this path, Chris is super passionate about giving back and spends 12 to 15 hours each month working with local charities and the Salvation Army, trying to help others see that they can change their circumstances. When not working on marketing campaigns for clients and volunteering, Chris enjoys spending time with his family, obsessing over the Ohio State Buckeyes, or on the basketball court. Chris, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you here.
Matt, thanks so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, right on. So, hey, Chris, how would your high school teachers describe you as a student?
I was a bad student.
Oh, yeah.
I was an unruly child. Yeah, I was a bad student. Easily distracted. I played basketball, and really all I cared about was basketball. In fact, I used to tell my mom, I think the only reason I was able to get through high school was because you had to keep your grades above a certain level to stay on the basketball team. Yeah, that was the thing. So it kind of kept me in line, but I turned it around.
Yeah. Well, tell me about that. Like, have you always wanted to become an entrepreneur? Like, what was the turning point that made you want to become an entrepreneur?
You know what? I don't know if I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I always had the, what do you call it? The spirit, so to speak. So I remember my first venture into it was buying, I had moved out 19 and I was buying radio equipment, stereos like for cars and speakers and stuff. And I'd sell them to friends at a higher rate and then charge them to install the equipment in their car and send them on their way. And it was just kind of hey, I can buy this for 100 and sell it for 2. Why not? It wasn't, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It was just like, hey, this makes sense. Why not? So I've always kind of had that spirit, I guess. Yeah.
What surprises you most about entrepreneurship?
The amount of people who go into it blindly. The amount of people who see passive income or get rich quick. They used to call that. There's no way for you to just start something with no money and no time and earn successful income. There's just no way to do it. You got to put in the work.
Yeah, you do. I think there's certain gurus that have propensed that belief, like Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Work Week. I'm just gonna be blunt. Like, I know what it takes to do digital marketing and business. Like, you need to hustle. Like, if you're going to start a business, you need to be working like 12-hour days, 10 days, like 10 days a week.
Until your eyes bleed, man. As much as possible.
In order to get things going. And so, with that being said, what's been your biggest challenge that you faced as an entrepreneur?
Well, when I started, it was how to get my name out there and how to get while growing my skills. Because when you start out, even if you've gone to school or been, educated or whatever, you're still learning, right? Your first year in business, You're still learning. My 12th year in business, I'm still learning, sure. But you're learning a lot in that first year. So trying to do that while getting your name out there, in the right way. It just seemed like there was a million things all to do because you're wearing so many hats. And so figuring out a way to manage that time and that effort, optimize that, I guess, that time and effort effectively was a real struggle for me at first. Yeah.
So was this in your car stereo venture, or was this in the beginning days of your agency?
Beginning days of the agency, I was, I didn't really have any money. So sorry. Didn't really have any, money or place to live or anything like that. So it was kind of like, I I'm going to have to figure this out. I learned to code as a kid. So,
okay.
I knew some of that. Yeah. Enough to be dangerous, I guess.
Okay.
But how am I going to get business, and how am I going to turn one sale into two and three and four? And I've spoken to people in the past in interviews and stuff. And I never thought back then that this was a business. I was just trying to eat, just trying to get food on the table.
Yeah.
And when I saw, hey, when I saw that I could turn, one client into two and two into three, and that I could actually make real revenue and real income to sustain myself, then it became, all right, well, let me put everything I can into this venture and just make a go of it.
Yeah. Okay. So there's so many questions to ask. Number one, how did you go from selling car stereos to selling digital marketing services?
All right. So, I had moved back down here to Florida in 2010. And like I said, I didn't have any job. I didn't have, anybody that I could rely on. I lived in a local motel for about a year. And what I did is I got a nighttime job at the Goodwill. So I would work midnight to 8 at the Goodwill, and people would drop off their donations, and I'd be there, half asleep to receive. And then during the day, I would code websites. And at the time, that's all the agency was, just me. I would code websites until 2-ish. And then from 2 to 3 or 4, I would go business to business, and I would shake hands and meet people.
Wow.
And just offer, hey, for me, the asset that I had was a lot of time, and I was green. I was still kind of learning. And so I could walk into a place that didn't want to spend a bunch of money on a website and say, okay, well, I could do that for half the price. Couldn't do it as good as some of the big companies, but I have the time. Yeah. And so for me, it was like, all right, well, I can do it in half the time, and I can learn every single project. I can get a little bit better. And so I would just go business to business, selling websites, man. I did that for probably the first 2 years of the business. That's it. All web dev.
And you just presented it as a less expensive offer, and then just learned as you were going.
Learned as I went. Those first sites, man, they looked like hell. they were rough, man. They were rough.
Yeah. Was that back in the days of before CMS? Was that back in the HTML and tables? And,
I remember the first time I saw the WordPress. I'm like, holy crap, this is a game changer.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Back in 2007, I looked at WordPress, and I was like, wow. Whatever time WordPress 2.7 came out, I don't know when that was, but was my introduction into WordPress. And I remember when WordPress 3 came out, that was huge. Now we're up to like WordPress 6. I don't even know what's out right now, but anyway.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah. So how did you always know how to sell, or was it just, did you, know what?
I kind a little bit of both. So I'm very comfortable in any room with any person. I don't care if they're, if our backgrounds are different or millionaire and whatever. I'm very comfortable in any room, comfortable in my skin. But I did spend some years working in the fit industry, and that is that can be a hard sell. For you only get a few minutes in front of somebody. They walk in the door, and you're trying to get them to see the goal at the end of the year or whatever. So that certainly helped. But I am not I don't like sales.
Okay.
I just don't like the sales side of biz dev. And so it's funny. I was just talking to a group a couple of weeks ago that I don't think I've asked for a sale in 5 years. I don't ask for the sale. Yeah, no.
So has the business just been built up to the point where it's just referrals now? You don't have to?
Well, certainly we outrank everybody, on Google. We've been around for a long time, got a good rep. Yeah, we get referrals. Absolutely. So it's a mixture. But, when I sit down with a potential client, I'm just trying to provide them value. Yeah. They come in and they've got a revenue goal of, say they did 1.2 last year and they want to do 2.4 next year, and they have no idea how they're going to get there. I'm just providing them value. Here's what you're currently doing. Here's where the areas, for growth are. Right. Here's what your competitors are doing. I literally give them the entire recipe, just in the hopes of providing them value. And they can certainly take that information and run.
And yeah.
But the type of client that I want is too busy. They're busy running their business, and they need somebody, an expert to come in and handle that for them. And so I just continue to provide value until they ask for the sale.
That is amazing. And so you went from door to door for like 2 years, knocking on small business owners' doors. And then at what point did you start to realize you needed an employee? Like, how did you make that transition?
The first employee I hired was a content writer. And that's because content is such a big component of what huge. We generally call SEO. I kind of look at that term SEO as like an older term that's been around for so long. Yeah. But can I sit down and write something professional? Yeah, sure. But is that what I'm really great at? No. And, it was not worth it to spend all my time trying to write an article about, when to change out your HVAC unit or whatever, So when I got to that point, I've always been a stickler on time management and whatnot. So I saw that and hired a content writer. It was my first hire.
Wow. And so in regards to developing the things that need to be done in your agency, like your SOPs, what was that process like in regards to knowing when you had a position for someone to be able to fill, to be able to hire for?
So, the SOPs was something that I want to say I didn't start developing until about year 5. Okay. I just would bring somebody on and felt like, okay, well, I can just train this person. That became such a grind, to train a person and then think like, oh, did I train that person on this? And what about this element? And as you know, this industry changes, a lot. And I remember a mentor of mine telling me that an SOP was, he asked me to describe, create or making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I remember this real clearly. And so I told him, you get your bread out and you put your peanut butter on one side and your jelly on the other. And he's like, all right, that's not right. Like, where do you get the peanut butter from? I said, Publix. It's like, what aisle? Oh, okay. What type of peanut butter? What type of knife do you pull, to use? Where do you find the butter knife? And how much peanut butter? What type of bread? Every little detail has to be there so that it can be, conveyed to the next person. And so I started to put that together then. Yeah.
What impact did that have on your business?
It was huge.
As you started to roll those out.
It's huge. I didn't have to explain every little detail to, every single person. It was huge. And listen, for any entrepreneur, the biggest asset that you have is time. You can free your time up and spend it where you're most profitable. You'll be successful.
Absolutely. Hey, that's we could end it right there. That was such a golden nugget.
Appreciate it.
So what advice would you give to someone then who's just starting out in business?
Just starting out in business, it's got to be something you love.
Okay.
It's got to be something you love. I always, I always hear about like, if I could just find something that the world needs or build a better mousetrap or whatever, then I'll make it. But really, any venture becomes a job at some point. I've been doing this a long time. I've got a routine. I come into the office, so on and so forth. It becomes a job unless you enjoy it. If you enjoy it, then working 12 hours, not a big deal because you're having a good time. You're enjoying it.
Absolutely.
The second thing is the time. When I started Aginto, I had lots of time. That was the asset that I had a hold of. So lots of time to go out and do biz dev or, build a website or whatever it might be. As the business grew, I had less time, but obviously more income, more revenue. Yeah. And so I could take that asset and put it into social media ads or pay per click or whatever. I used that asset, and deployed it effectively. Exactly. So whatever asset you have, if it's time, you got to deploy that effectively.
Yeah. Yeah. Right on. Do you think it's important for entrepreneurs to give back to the community?
I think it's the most important thing. Yeah, I think it's the most important thing. And, I've talked with some people. I'm not a karma type of dude per se. To each their own, but there is something to giving back. Yeah, giving back to the community that is supporting you. If you're a local business and you're in Topeka, Kansas, and you're growing, that's because Topeka, Kansas is taking care of you. Yeah. And so it's imperative that you give some of that back to the community and help somebody up in the process. Plus, there's certainly something to who you're giving back with. When you're out in the community volunteering, who's next to you? Maybe that's another business owner, or maybe that's a potential customer. It doesn't have to be. You give back just to give back, but certainly it has opened opportunities for me. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah. Robert Kiyosaki in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he talked about every time he was in a pinch or he didn't have an opportunity or something, he gave away money. And something would come of it. Like he told this one story about how he gave some money away and it opened up this huge door. And I think there is something to be said for reaping and sowing, or karma, whatever you want to call it, in that regard. How do you think? What are some of the ways that entrepreneurs, or what are some of the ways that you've given back to the community?
Well, I started volunteering just in like a soup kitchen at the Salvation Army. I was about 18 months into business. So it's probably 2012, 2013, I guess. And that was just simply out of, I saw that there was a need. I had a little bit of time. I was on my feet and I had an opportunity to give back. So I started there. As time has gone on and my personal time has, become limited, I've transitioned into more board seats. So I sit on the board at an organization called Parenting Matters. Cool. They strengthen families through parenting education. And then I'm the board chair at the Salvation Army in Manatee County.
All right.
Still volunteer in the kitchen, once or twice a month, but not a couple times a week like I used to be.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. So do you have any advice for other entrepreneurs who want to think about giving back to their community?
It depends one community to the next, but especially here in this country, just about any community is going to have, underserved, underprivileged people. I would start there. Where can you provide? Take your time. Something like serving in the kitchen doesn't take any particular skill or anything like that. But if you've got a skill, I was at the Salvation Army yesterday, and there was a guy there cutting hair. So if you're an entrepreneur that's a barber, take your skill and see if you can apply that and help somebody out, no matter what that is.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's this huge thing going on right now, for lack of a better word, of people thinking that capitalism and entrepreneurship is the evil. And not to get into politics too, not to go that route too much, but it's just encouraging to see you doing this, and that as entrepreneurs and business owners and people who've benefited from the work we do to be able to give back. And I think that entrepreneurship can be used as a force for good, and not just for dirty capitalism and whatever. Of course, there's evil side to everything, like on both sides of the economic and social spectrum, political spectrum. But, I don't think it has to be. Like, I think that, capitalism, if you look at it, has done more to lift people out of poverty than any other economic system or political system in the history of the world. Like people can challenge me on that, but I can come back. I could go and show research that does that. So I'm just saying, the reason I'm saying that is because it's so refreshing to hear that you're doing these things and that we can encourage other business owners, that you don't just have to make it all about you and take.
Yeah.
That you can give back.
And you don't have to be a millionaire, either. It doesn't have to be a financial investment. It can be, but it doesn't have to be a financial investment. It can be your time. It can be your skill, your strength, whatever it might be. But, use the blessings that you've received. For good. Pass that on.
And what's interesting is it's funny you bring this up because I have an appointment to give blood tomorrow. And that's one thing that I do in order to give back, because it's something I have and it's something I can give. So,
and there's a need.
And there's a need. So, and I take a picture every time I do it and put it on Facebook just to say, hey, because
encourage others.
Encourage others. And so, and I think that agencies as well, we could donate, or we could donate. Like I know this one guy, he donated a whole bunch of website builds during COVID. He did
Great
something
idea.
crazy. He's in the UK. He developed 300 websites for nonprofits during COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell
phenomenal.
you about it. He did an interview. It's not live yet, but he did that. So instead of like worrying about getting clients and everybody was not spending money, he's like, well, I'll just help nonprofits and be a source for good. And they're not a business. And but the amount of business that he got from it and the amount of PR, because he got picked up in the news,
huge,
was huge, man. So
priceless.
Priceless, absolutely. So what inspired you to? I know we touched on it a little bit, Chris, but like, what inspired you to go from, again, the digital marketing side of things? It's just because it was the coding thing that started out. Is that what it was? That you were building websites and then they needed digital marketing. They're like, well, now you built me a website. How do I get traffic to it? Is that the natural progression? Yeah,
kind of. I actually, so there's a story to it. I was about two years or so into business, and I was on the highway driving down the road during the workday, and I had one of them old clunky phones, whatever, and I could not hear.
What you're talking about.
I couldn't hear the guy I was on the phone with, potential client. So I took an exit, and it was breaking up. I took an exit and pulled into the library here in Sarasota, and so I get out of my car. I'm in a good spot. I can hear this guy. I finish my conversation, and I go to get back in my running vehicle, and the door is locked.
Oh,
so, back then, at any time, gas is, I didn't want to burn that gas. I needed to get to an appointment, kind of flipping out. So I grabbed my phone and I searched for mobile locksmith. And I don't remember the company to this day. I don't know if they're still in business or still around or whatever, but I do remember that his website looked like hell. Didn't look great.
Yeah.
But at the top of the page was a locked out, call me now, click right here. And I clicked the button. I called the guy. He came out. He solved my problem and he got my money because he had my solution and he was easy to contact. And it hit me like in that transaction, it hit me like, man, it doesn't matter what your site looks like. It doesn't matter, if you have a site, all that matters is if the phone rings.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. And so I began to evolve the agency into what it is now, where we focus on making the phone ring. Can we build pretty websites? Yeah, absolutely. We still do some of those from time to time, but it's all about making the phone ring for whatever type of business it is.
Yeah, it always blows my mind away to see business owners. Like when I was in BNI, there were so many business owners, so many ugly websites, and they didn't care. They didn't care, and I'm like,
maybe the phone's ringing.
And as long as the phone's ringing, right? And then obviously, if the customers don't care, why do they care about if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if the phone's ringing, and it's like, but you're just looking at going, that's so ugly. And maybe that's one of the things I had to overcome. Well, that's pretty amazing. I was going to ask you, I know I want to respect so many questions I have to ask you. What do you think's been the biggest challenge, the biggest change in digital marketing over the last few years?
The biggest change in digital marketing over the last few years.
Yeah.
I would say it's happening right. I would say it's happening right now.
Okay.
TikTok coming on with an interest graph rather than the follow graph that we've all been accustomed to. It used to be, I want to even say back, I don't remember MySpace very well. Like I remember it, but it was more of a personal, not a business thing at the time.
Yeah, it was.
But certainly, certainly Facebook and Twitter and every other social network has been based on you follow me, I create content, you see it or you might see it. And that's it. There's no other reach beyond that until you engage with my content. Yeah. TikTok coming along with the interest graph and making that change to where whether you follow me or not, if your behavior shows that you are interested in the content that I'm creating, TikTok's going to put it in front of you. That's changed the game. And you see other platforms like I'm a Twitter user. I've always used Twitter, and Twitter's videos now have a swipe function. And the people that I swipe are not people that I follow, but it is content that I'm interested in.
Wow.
And so I feel like it's a major shift. And I think that all of the platforms that we currently have will migrate to that. And any future platforms will be based on that. And that's huge. That's huge. It's no longer about acquiring followers. It's about creating actual content that provides value.
Yeah. Mark Zuckerberg, I read an article that he was saying that he underestimated and did not prepare for TikTok. And he did not. Yeah. He plainly said he got it wrong.
Yeah.
And the thing in business is somebody's always coming to steal your lunch. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
Yeah.
I meet some agency owners who are like, well, we're just interested in organic growth and we're not really interested in growing. And I'm like, what? Like, how could you? Well, then somebody's going to come and steal your lunch until the point where you don't have any more lunch. Like,
that's right.
I don't mean
and it happens. No, it's 100% true. And it happens, substantially more when there's a technology shift. Ask Kodak. Kodak had that digital camera. They are the ones
that, oh gosh, they invented the digital camera.
Invented the digital camera. Didn't want to push it. Yeah. I mean, think about that. The shift is right in front of them. They chose that we don't want to focus on that. And they lost, unfortunately.
They did. And I don't know. I mean, not to go like from a business perspective, I think we need to really keep focused on what it is we're doing and try and be as innovative as possible. Like here's what I want to say. I think Mark Zuckerberg made a mistake in focusing so much time on the metaverse and not as much time focusing on fixing how Apple put up their wall to stop effective advertising with 14.5 and not seeing being innovative, because it seems like he's always trying to copy he's either trying to copy or buy them
or acquire
them. That's what I mean, rather than himself being innovative. And I think that the metaverse is too far out to be focusing so much time and resources. Is that correct, or am I?
I would agree with you. I've been researching. So, it's out there. It's interesting, but it's what's here now is TikTok or at least the interest graph.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things I'm really intrigued in is human behavior, right? Sure. I don't think that any human behavior has dictated that the metaverse is going to be here tomorrow. There's people interested in it. Yeah. But the masses are still on that mobile device. And I don't see that changing tomorrow. It'll change soon, but there's no reason to believe that it's going to change into that full, goggle or anything like that anytime soon.
No, it's maybe 5 years away.
At least.
So it's like, why are you focusing so much time?
And we got to be prepared for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but not today.
So what do you think marketers should do and how we should pivot then with the changes that's happening with the interest graph?
I think it goes back to just creating content of value. Okay. So, whether that is, and listen, where you just deploy and distribute that content certainly depends on your industry and your audience. And, we can go on and on about following statistical data about that. But at the end of the day, the content, the collateral is what's going to matter. So if your audience is, on TikTok, you've got to create video content, that is X amount of seconds long that engages that audience. It provides value to that audience. If your audience is, intent driven and they're doing a Google search, then maybe you need to create more content that is of written value. But at the end of the day, it's content that provides value.
Yeah.
And you've got to create it at scale. It's no longer acceptable. I remember 8 years ago, I'd pull up a website and they'd have a blog, and that blog would have, once a month articles going back.
Yeah.
Once a month article going back 5 years. No longer is that acceptable.
No, it's not. No. Even HubSpot did a case study that the more you blog, the more money you make.
Absolutely. The more content.
Yeah. That was just on blogging. Wasn't even on videos or anything like that.
Yeah. Video. Yeah. Video is another medium. I mean, at the end of the day, you can take, video. Yeah. Videos are great because of so many visual learners and so many people tuning in. I actually believe in video, for further reasons because of its repurposing value. If we sit down with somebody and they pump out a 3-minute video, fantastic. But we could turn that 3-minute video into 5, 30-second clips for social media. We can transcribe that for written content. We can, take snippets out of that written content for social content. It's that 1 3-minute video can be repurposed in so many ways. That's the beauty of a video for me.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do with these episodes. Exactly that.
Yeah.
So, there was a question I had there, another one, follow-up one, but I forgot what it was. Sorry. I'm just thinking here. My apologies.
Take your time.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank you. So with that being said, with technology and everything happening, what are your thoughts on AI assisted content? For instance, Jasper just became a $1.5 billion evaluated company and did $165 million in Series A round funding. What are your thoughts on AI assisted content?
It's cool. The only thing about it is, certainly any new tech comes out, I'm going to review it, right?
Yeah.
So I've played with Jasper. It's cool. I think there's some real application in terms of, changing the ad copy in your pay-per-click ads, or changing the copy on a redistributed piece of social media content. I think that, there's some real powerful value there. I don't think there's value there yet for creating long form, valuable content. And at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to somebody doing the research and writing, or sitting in front of the camera and talking, or on the mic and talking. It's going to be better than any AI today.
Yeah.
A year from now, who knows?
Yeah. I think it's GPT-4 is coming out, which is the new AI from OpenAI, which I'm only going to assume Jasper is based off of. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
One thing I'll add is,
sure,
anytime we have been faced with an opportunity to automate a process, when we talk about like SEO, the way it used to be was all backlinks, right? And the more backlinks you got, the more thumbs up you had, and the more thumbs up you had, the higher you would rank, until those automated processes came along and started just pumping out backlinks by the thousands, and Google changed the algorithm. And so I would bet, based on Google's behavior, that if a year from now, an AI platform like Jasper, for example, is able to create long form written content that is valuable and original, that Google would probably change the algorithm.
Yeah.
And so we'd be right back to square one. I think at the end of the day, it's just creating your own original content.
Yeah. Yeah. They're definitely always, it seems like there's this battle always between SEOs and Google. And that could be for another episode. So, hey, there's probably 30 other questions I have lined up to ask you, but I know we're coming to the top of the hour. So what's one big takeaway you want listeners to get from this episode?
One big takeaway to get from this episode. Oh man, like you said, there are so many. The biggest thing I would say is twofold: enjoy what you do, or you're going to do, and the time management. You have to find a way to spend your time where you are most valuable, and that's whether you're or most profitable, I should say, and that's whether you're a startup, and a brand new entrepreneur, or you've been in business for 20 years. You've got to find a way to manage your time so that you are most profitable while you're working, and you're focused and locked in on whatever it is. When I'm working on a task, I'm 100% on that task. When I'm sleeping, I'm trying to be 100% sleeping. Like that, nothing else. Like you got to be able to block your time off effectively. And when you do that, it's going to spill into everything else. You're going to be able to finish your tasks on time. You're going to be able to bring on new clients, create revenue, so on and so forth. Lead your team. All that stuff comes into play when you maximize your time.
Right on. Wow. Maybe we could have you on for another episode talking about time management strategies and agency management strategies and so on. So that'd be awesome. Hey, but in the meantime, how can our listeners, I would love to, how can our listeners connect with you online if they choose to do so?
Well, certainly they can go to our website anytime. It's aginto.com. It's AGINTO.com. But like I said, I'm a Twitter user and a LinkedIn user. So you can get me at Twitter. I'm at Chris is Bald. That's
cool.
Weird one. But I'm very, very engaged on LinkedIn, and you can just look me up, Chris Williams, here in Sarasota, Florida.
Fantastic. We'll make sure to put those links and information in the show notes. So thank you very much for coming on the show today. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thanks for having me, Matt.